Whispers in the Wind. Hello and welcome to Whispers in the Wind, a podcast where your story has a voice. Today, I'm with the amazing Nisha Zala, an international motivational speaker and author who has a story about what it takes to find who you truly are. This is her story. What's your story?
Wow, there is a big story, and I'm happy to be able to share this with you and your listeners. So, my story starts when I was young, my early years as I started out in this big world. As a child, I grew up in a white community. As an Asian kid growing up in a white community, you can tell what the odds are. The odds are that there's going to be some racial divide, and I ended up getting picked on and bullied because I look different and I seem different because of what not fitting society's norm at the time. During that time, it left me in this wilderness place, figuring out why I'm here, who I'm about at the age of 7 years old. And I remember being in the video room at the time because at this point I was self-harming. The pain of being in an environment where you feel like you're rejected was just painful enough, and I wanted out. I wanted away. And I was like asking questions of why am I here, who am I, and why do I exist? And I just wanted some understanding. And I remember being in the video room, and at the time what was playing was this fascinating man who I had no idea about, because growing up in an Indian family, my heritage was, curries and Bollywood and all, idol gods, and that was the norm for me. So being introduced to something that wasn't that, and I felt intrigued. I wanted to explore more, but I knew that I couldn't go home to explore this. So I kept a secret.
You kept a secret?
Yes, I kept a secret. I wanted to seek truth. I could not find that the truth that I was being fed was something that I could believe in. I could not believe that there were multiple gods. I could not believe that there were things that I didn't agree with. Girls not being able to wash their hair on certain days or feel unclean because they're on their periods to pray. And so it was a lot of rituals that I felt that were separating me from God. And I felt that there must be, a truth. I was seeking truth, and I tried so many different things, with, being born in a Hindu family. I went to Buddhism, Kabbalah, New Age, yoga. I tried quite a lot of different ways to channel God's existence. But what I found was that through everything that I tried, the truth that I arrived at was the existence of Jesus. And that was when my eyes began to open to know that this is it. This is what truth means to me.
How did it feel keeping it secret?
At times awkward, at times exciting, at times confused. I guess it was like a mixed bag of emotions.
Did you ever actually want to tell anybody? Because sometimes you have a secret and, you're just dying to tell someone.
I was scared. I was scared whether I was going to be rejected from my family, or whether they would call me a traitor because I wanted to learn about something different to what I was brought up with. There was a lot of pressure as to wanting to share but not wanting to share at the same time.
Okay, so take us back. Where did your story actually start from, in terms of when you first understood that you wanted to have this change?
I wanted to seek change. I guess I wanted meaning because up until the point of being in that video room, there was no meaning. I was rejected and neglected by my parents at times. Being the middle child isn't always easy because the love was given to my younger sister, being the baby, and my brother, is the oldest. And as men in an Indian family, they're given a reign, like they're given a position. So, I felt like I was a reject.
What did you actually do to sort of... Did you do anything to hide yourself from these feelings? I know you said you didn't really tell anybody about your secrets and everything else, but how did you actually cope with this yourself, personally, emotionally and mentally?
I guess self-harm was the way that I could release the pain and the emotions that were building up. And I started to write poetry, and that was a way for me to also release my emotions onto paper.
So what kind of poetry did you actually end up writing? Do you still do it?
I've had writer's block for a while.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
But yeah, I used to write quite a lot of poetry, and the type of poetry that I wrote back then was how I felt at the time. What was I going through? There was a lot of processing, and you don't understand as a child what you're processing, but there needed to be an outlet, and I guess the poetry was something that I felt was a way from hurting myself that I could release.
So tell us a little about something. You were a Hindu beginning, weren't you?
Yes.
And then you transferred to Christianity.
Yes.
What made that transference?
I wanted to seek truth. I could not find that the truth that I was being fed was something that I could believe in. I could not believe that there were multiple gods. I could not believe that there were things that I didn't agree with. Girls not being able to wash their hair on certain days or feel unclean because they're on their periods to pray. And so it was a lot of rituals that I felt that were separating me from God, and I felt that there must be, a truth. I was seeking truth, and I tried so many different things, with, being born in a Hindu family. I went to Buddhism, Kabbalah, New Age, yoga. I tried quite a lot of different ways to channel God's existence. But what I found was that through everything that I tried, the truth that I arrived at was the existence of Jesus. And that was when my eyes began to open to know that this is it. This is what truth means to me.
What was one of the key questions and the key discoveries that you found in Christianity that you didn't in Hinduism? For you personally?
I used to walk into a temple and I would be like, confused because as soon as you arrive, you have to take your shoes off. There's customs. You have to present yourself in a certain way before you get to experience praying to God. And I felt like there must be a simple way than all these things you have to do before God. And when I arrived, when I went to a church, I felt instant peace. I felt I didn't have to do all these rituals to get to experience praying to God or having a relationship with God. I felt it was a direct link, and that's what I felt was different between Hinduism, because you have the pandit, and so you get to, when you go to a temple, the pandit will then like the pastor, but I just felt like we can skip the pundits and the pastors and have the direct relationship with God. And I think that's the most beautiful thing, is to have a link. And it's not a religion. And what I found with Christianity was that it's a relationship. It's a relationship with God. That's the most important thing, because we are spirits living a human experience, and it's how do we live this human experience while being a spirit? And when we can understand the depths of what that means, we understand that we are only here for a temporary existence on this earthly experience. Then where do we go after this? The Hindus believe that they get reincarnated, but when you come to know and give your life over to Christianity, you go to heaven. So this is what was the difference.
So from your childhood and the whole thing of processing emotions and everything else, obviously not being able to, as you said, sort of reach out to anybody because of the environment you're in, did finding Christianity work for you in the sense that you were able to find not just God, but other people to talk to and sort of have your voice heard in another community?
I would definitely say that. I remember being at school, in my secondary school, and this was when the first time that I met not my direct teacher, but a teacher that was at the school. And I was able to connect with her, and she actually took me to my first church service. And the experience was different from what I grew up knowing how the Hindu system works. So being learning about Christianity and how they follow certain ways to pray, to come to a place of togetherness, and togetherness is a fellowship in the church. And church doesn't mean the building. I think people get that wrong. Church means a fellowship with each other. And what I find is that since all of that time up until now, I have always had this endearment of wanting to be more connected to God and to the enlightenment of how to expand my soul. And I find that I can do that with Christianity. It gives that open space, and the people that I meet on this journey, it's incredible.
Okay. You mentioned that you went through a lot of healing, and obviously from self-harm, and did you also mention depression as well?
Yeah, I've gone through depression. That stemmed from the bullying.
So you were bullied as a child?
I was bullied as a child.
In school or outside or?
In school, and also outside of school.
If you don't mind me asking, what were they saying? What were you bullied for?
Because I grew up in a white community and I was from an Indian heritage background, and so it was like name calling, like you Paki, go back to your own country, and it's very confusing for a child to hear these things when, firstly, I was born in the UK, and secondly, I cannot do anything with the colour of my skin, and so yeah, these were very hurtful things, and I think people are much more aware of the racial divide between the blacks and the whites, or that there's definitely that more racial awareness when it comes to certain types of groups. But I think when it comes to Asian people or people from different cultural backgrounds, there's a limit to their voice that's heard in the society.
With regards to being born in Hinduism and everything else, and obviously being bullied, I think that's a lot of times sort of where it starts. The change in the religion and the change into understanding when the journey into understanding who you are, do you think it stems from the bullying that you experienced as a child?
It started it off.
So, from the bullying and poetry and sort of self-harm being your release, from there, how, when you found Christianity, you found Jesus, and you understood how to sort of change, what was the healing process like from being from self-harming yourself and trying to understand the world in which you were in? How did you go from there to actually being the person you are now? Like, as in the key step apart from the religious change. What else coupled that?
I would say knowing discovering who I am, discovering who Nisha is. What is Nisha about? What does Nisha like? What does Nisha stand for? What is Nisha's beliefs? And it was a discovery to, you can, try, you need to try things out. You need to explore, go on adventures, because how can you learn about yourself if you're stuck at home sitting on a couch? You can't learn about yourself doing that way. You have to go out there. You have to explore. You have to do these things to understand you better.
Well, as they say, the world is your oyster. But actually, just going on that thing, what was there ever a time or a memory that you have that you went out and there was a significant change in you understanding who you were more?
When I was 17, I was sexually abused. At that point, I fell victim, and it's taken time to process. And at that point, I tried to do something to better my life, but in a way that I just got so addicted, and it reversed what I wanted, and so it left me in a place where I remember one evening, it got so bad that my friend had to call the ambulance, and the ambulance came and they said, what do you want us to do with you? Do you want to go to do you want us to take you to a mental hospital? And at that point,
Really?
I was like, what have I done to myself to get to this level that I need to go to a mental hospital? I just, at that point, was my no return. I needed salvation. I needed a way out of the addiction that I that I consumed at that time. And
What was the actual main addiction?
it was financial markets.
As in investing?
Yeah.
What was it that was really making you go back?
Just building my capital, but then, in the beginning it was good. I was earning quite a bit, but then at the point was I made a couple of errors, and those errors were like what put me into a spiral of downwards, and I'm trying to get the money back. And so I ended up in an addiction, and I'd never been addicted before in anything. Yeah. And that was where I knew that I felt like a dark blanket covering me, and all I needed, like I couldn't think about anything else apart from the addiction that I had, and at that point, that's when I was like, I almost went to a mental hospital.
When you heard that you would to be admitted there. What changed in you?
I needed to wake up. I needed to wake up from the addiction. I needed to wake up, and it didn't take. It took me a couple of days. I'm not saying it took me that, but it took me a couple of days. And my friend, who was with me when the ambulance came, the paramedics came, he said to the paramedics, "I'm going to take care of her," and he said to me, "I'm going to take your laptop away. You are not how, I'm going to take all your devices away. I'm going to take everything away for a week." And and that was it. It was like that. And at that point, I just went on my knees. I was like, I can't, what am I doing? What am I doing? I need help.
And when you actually reached out for Jesus at the time, what did you feel?
I felt like his arms just wrapping me, his arms wrapping, I'm in his arms, and he's wrapped around, and he's like, "I've got you, my child. I'm come to me and you will get your, peace, and I will help you get through this." At that point was, I needed to hear that. I needed to feel like I'm going to be able to find hope through this challenging situation that I got myself in. It's made me stronger today. It's made me stronger. It's made me a fighter today. I love the Rocky Bilbao song, Eye of the Tiger is one of my, running up those stairs and shouting and saying, "You know what, I've arrived. This is me, and no one else can hurt me anymore."
From your childhood, finding Jesus and going through everything that you've been through, the addiction, going to the asylum and everything, from there, how do you start to build yourself up?
I saved, and I went on to courses, wanted to progress, because where I wasn't healthy, it was keeping me in a confined space, or at a point. But I knew that there was something in me. I needed out. I needed to learn and to grow. And I've always been a person that has always been, one of my highest values is growth. I want to not just be someone that just is in the comfort lane. Growth for me is learning and going on courses and expanding my skills and doing something new. And I've always been somebody who just wants to keep going in that sense. So yeah.
The Nisha now, who you are now, what are you actually up to now in terms of being your best self? Because you seem to be very sure of yourself, which I'm really glad about, and you seem to be wanting to help people, because I believe you said you're a professional motivational speaker. Mm-hmm. What brought that around? What made you want to become a motivational speaker?
I knew there was a message, because all the things I had gone through, all the traumas, all the challenges, it needed to count for something, and I needed to unleash the experiences and help someone else out, because as we are on this earth temporarily, and whilst we're on this earth and temporarily, we need to make it good. We need to make it better for the generation that is going to come. So that inspired me to become a motivational speaker, because when you have a strong message, when you have a strong voice that needs to be unleashed, you don't know whether it's one person, 10 people, 100 people, 1,000, a million hearts that you're going to touch, so they will know that their life matters.
How you are now, what would you say to your childlike self if you could?
I would say, know your self-worth. Know that you are valuable beyond measure, and that life is going to be difficult, but you will get through it, and you just be a fighter, because the more you experience, the more you allow yourself to take in, and when you reach your adult life, you're going to be full of stories, full of wisdom, full of all the things, because now you know who you are.
And who are you?
I am a person who has gone through darkness, who's received the light, who lives now in the light, and today I know what the taste of freedom is. I'm no longer a victim.
And if you could say anything to our audience, what would you want to say to them?
I would say, if you are going through challenges, if you are going through any kind of mental health or experience that you can't understand, seek refuge and know that you can come through it. And your story will allow somebody else's chains to fall off, because you have stood up and said, I am valuable.
Nobody in this world is perfect, but everybody is valuable. You are valuable. You may have scars and cracks and chips on every part of your body and soul, but that is part of the journey to finding yourself, and you should never be ashamed of it. Allow yourself to make mistakes. How else do you learn? And as the Japanese philosophy of Kinsugi says, in embracing flaws and imperfections, you can create an even stronger, more beautiful piece of art. And as you learn from your mistakes, you will find your goal to fill in your cracks and scars. Your value will skyrocket, and you will blossom into the most powerful person you were meant to be. But it is you who must make that first step. Dare to find out who you are. I'm Zafran Ahmed, and this is Whispers in the Wind, giving your stories a voice. Thank you for listening.